Hello, my name is James Oldroyd. It's great to be with you here in this virtual summit. I'm going to talk today. I'm a professor at Brigham Young University, and I've spent the last almost 20 years looking at sales and responding to leads. I've published a few things in Harvard Business Review, et cetera, looking at how sales leaders can maximize their energy and effort. I'm going to talk today about some research I've been doing on closing deals and link that to managing attention, which I think is a key topic. So if we look at the traditional sales cycle, what we'll see is that there's minimal effort in sales reps until they get towards the end of month or end of quarter or whenever those incentives really kick in, and then there's this massive push to try to close business at the end of the month. And so this is the theoretical model. Here's data from a company looking across a couple of years and then aggregating their results, their monthly results across 24 different pay periods or monthly periods. And the data plays out just as you'd expect it would. So what we see is that there's a huge push at the end of the month to close business, and it works. So the deals won by a day of month shows that we're getting between 10 and 15 deals a month until those last 4 days of the quarter of the month here, where it really just explodes. And what we see is that the deals increase by a factor of 3.6 over the first 25 days of the month. So those last few days are critical. There lots of deals are being pushed over the end. I'm here to say that might not be the best thing. And if we layer on another layer of data, what we see is that yes, wins do increase, but losses increase exponentially. So whereas earlier, the first 26 days of the month, the loss win ratio is 0.5, meaning that on average reps are closing 2 deals for every one that they're losing. And if we look towards the last 4 days of the month, we see that this flips to 1.5 in the last 2 days, and then 2.2 in the last day, meaning that on average reps are closing 0.5 to what they're losing. So in other words, they're burning through lots and lots of potentials here to try to get over that, to try to push that end of month approach. And so it's costly. It's costly for them to do this. So the question is why would this happen? And of course, there's several factors at play. But I think one of them is that the reps are focused on themselves. So they're focused on their schedule. It's the end of the month. I'm up against my incentives. And so they have huge incentives to meet quota by the end of the month. And they're thinking about themselves, their incentives, and their needs. Perhaps of course, that's not likely to change soon. But what we see is that this problem is not one of mismatched interests. If you have product market fit and you have a good rep, pushing your product to market is easy. It's finding the right time for the client rather than does this work for them. And so what I'm going to argue here is that what we really have, rather than a mismatch of interests, meaning the product's not the right thing for them, is that big push at the end of the month forces out so many clients because it's a mismatch in attention. Now, one of my favorite scholars is a Nobel laureate, Herbert Simon, who was at Carnegie Mellon University. And he said this. He said, in an information-rich world, which is the world we're living in, with there's just so much information. A wealth of information means a dearth of something else, a scarcity of what it is that information consumes. What information consumes is rather obvious. It consumes the attention of its recipients. Hence, a wealth of information creates a poverty of attention and a need to allocate that attention efficiently among the overabundance of information sources that might consume it. If we take this as true, that we've shifted from a poverty of information to a poverty of attention world. So in the first, thousands of years of world history, I could not find the information I needed. Even in the world's best libraries, I might not be able to find the information I needed. Herbert Simon is arguing that has shifted, that it's no longer information that's the problem, it's attention that's the problem. And if we believe that's true, then that becomes the scarce resource for our potential customers, not information. Information is not a scarce resource, it's attention. And so that changes the way we think about engaging with our customers or potential customers. And so when we push hard at the end of the month, we get them to a state of information overload. And what we know from the research on information overload is that it cripples performance. So you can imagine you're probably not the only person trying to sell to these customers at the end of the month to close that business. Everyone's dumping all this information on them. And when you get to a state of overload, you just give up. You're like, forget it. In a state of overload, performance drops exponentially. And what happens is they just forget it. I don't care. I'll walk away. And I think that's part of what we're seeing with those significant increase in losses at the end of the month, is the push is forcing so much information on clients when their attention is already constrained to the point that they walk away. So what are the implications of this? I think there's several. First is that we really need to shift the focus from your sales reps, from you as a sales rep, to finding ways to meet the client's buying schedule. And what I mean by this is, how can you, again, if attention is the scarce resource, how can you engage with them in a way that preserves their attention, that minimizes their investment, which is their attention in what you're doing? And so one of the chat funnels who sponsored this event is one of the tools that's pushing that kind of communication, where I no longer am trying to match my schedule with the client's schedule to find a time when we can have a phone call or a visit or product demo or whatever that may be. I'm opening up 24/7 for them to reach out to me when they can attend to it. And then I adjust my attention to meet their attention. It's going to be much, much more effective than our traditional approach. The other implication for this is endgaming is incredibly costly. I am forcing my attention constraints on my clients, which it's absolutely stupid. And I not only that, but then I double down on it by providing incentives that reinforce that behavior and magnify that counterproductive behavior. And so perhaps a better approach would be to thinking about the win-loss ratio rather than a calendar event. I don't, if I give you a good lead, I don't care if it takes you a week longer or even a month longer to close that deal, as long as you can match the client's attention when they have capacity, when they have attention. So I think if we switch our mentality from one of abundance of attention, the potential clients sitting there with a lot of time to listen to me, to one where their scarcest resource is no longer money, but rather attention, it changes our behavior, it modifies our behavior so that we're more patient and focus on them and meeting their availability. And so, I think the final thought is we operate in a world suffering from what Herbert Simon called the poverty of attention, where people are constrained. And what's interesting is he wrote this article in the 1950s. Can you imagine what he would say about what the world looks like in 2020, where attention has become the scarce resource? It's no longer capital. If you go talk to any CEO, any executive, and you say, what do you wish you had more of? The first thing they will say is time. And what they really mean is, what I wish I had more of is attention, so that they can attend to things that they need to. Now, as a sales rep, what this implies is that when I'm closing business, I can no longer afford to think about my own attention and my own attention constraints, but start to consider, what is the client? What's the client look like? And that can come in me easing the process for them, in easing the communication options available to them, and in reducing and simplifying, and again, thinking about, am I spending their attention rather than am I spending their money? Or am I, trying to extract money from them? They're happy to give me money if I've got a good product, but they may not be willing to give me attention that is their scarce resource. And so if we start to think about this in a serious way, it means that we need to start managing our attention and our clients' attention. And if we can do that effectively, then we win in the future, and it's going to close more business for us. So thank you. Again, my name is James Oldroyd, and it's been a pleasure to have been able to spend a few minutes and share some of my research with you.